In this episode of MPTV, we visit with Shaheen Kazemi of Simply Grand Cafe and Catering, and we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of restaurant owners like you always want to know: how to execute catering, how to get catering clients. But we're also going to talk about what he's went through the last 8 months of being completely shut down during the pandemic, and why he decided to only be open for certain times of the day, certain days of the week. Let's go check it out. Hey, it's Matt. We're back with another episode of MPTV. We're in downtown Cincinnati at Simply Grand Cafe. We're here with Shaheen, the owner. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
That's my honor. You know, we've known each other for a while. You're a seasoned restaurateur.
Yeah.
But it's got to be tough because we're in your baby, your restaurant, and it's been a few months since business has happened here.
Right. It's been about 8 months now.
8 months.
So yeah, we closed the day before St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
And reopened for 1 week in June. Nobody in the building, so we shut it back down. So hoping that the population goes back up to where it needs to be for us to be able to manage to operate a business.
So I guess tell us about your background, because you've been in the restaurant business for a while. You've had a couple different lives in it.
Yeah. I graduated from UC, and I always knew I wanted to be in the restaurant business. I worked in restaurants growing up, and then worked at some old school Italian places in town, one called Barisi's.
Okay.
It was a fine dining Italian restaurant, and then I got my cooking chops at a place called Germano's, which I'm still good friends with Dominic, the chef owner of that place, and he's retired since. After graduation, went to Seattle and started cooking, did some corporate stuff, did some mom and pop stuff, and stayed there about 4 years, and my wife got homesick, so we decided to come back to Cincinnati. Came back here, worked at Trio in Kenwood, then became the chef at Arnold's downtown.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And while the chef at Arnold's opened up a concept called Burrito Joe's, that's about 25 years ago now, and did that for a while, and now about 16 years ago opened up the catering operation. It was called Joe's Express, where we just did box lunches, and bought a catering company that was next door to Burrito Joe's, and changed it to Simply Grand. About 8 years after that, decided to have a brick and mortar space downtown for the catering operation. So we opened up this space in the Great American Tower, and things were good. You know, we're humping along. You know, year-over-year growth was good. Catering was booming, and then the rug got pulled out.
Yeah,
so
the pandemic.
yeah. So, but you know, we're keeping optimistic, and hopefully by January, some people start showing up back to the office, so we can kind of revamp and get rolling again.
So you were Chipotle before Chipotle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Burrito Joe's, I've been around it for my whole life, and it really was kind of, Chipotle's everywhere now, and
Right.
the different places like that, the fast casual Mexican, that's what Burrito Joe's was
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah, it really was, and it was interesting when we first opened, the flavors were really big and bold, and
Because didn't you have hot sauces on all the tables?
yeah,
like
we
a lot
had
of them?
crazy hot sauces on each table, and all the flavors of the stewed meats and the rice and the beans, everything was really big and bold. Well, no one was ready for that quite yet in Cincinnati, so had to tone it down and Americanize it a bit, and it took off from day one. It really did, and you know, it was a good concept. It really was. It was a good, fast, casual concept, quality food, you know, kind of a divey, you know, setting, because I didn't have any money, you know, we just opened up on credit cards, literally. And, but from day one, we opened up the doors and it was humping, you know, so it was a great concept.
Yeah, my first experience with Burrito Joe's, I've already told you a story. I interned for George Vogel at the NBC station here.
So you went to Ludlow.
Yeah, and George Vogel and Rufus and Kent Weaver would always go to Burrito Joe's. Yeah. So when I get there, they will order for you. And we order, and I go to the restroom and I come back, and and I take a bite of my taco, and I thought my face was going to melt off, because apparently they had taken
The Dave's insanity.
something crazy, put it on there. Whoever was behind the counter was like, "Oh, you didn't do that to him again," because I guess they must do it to everybody. But that was my first experience with Burrito Joe's,
Yeah.
and then later in life when I started working with you and met you there. One thing that always got my attention about Burrito Joe's and even this concept, one thing I've thought is hard about the restaurant business is that a lot of restaurants try to be everything to everybody 7 days a week.
Right.
And recently I was up in Minnesota, met with one of our clients, a place called Basilio's, and they're only open for dinner. And their comment was, we looked at our business model and thought, could we survive lunch and dinner? Did we want to be married to this place 8 a.m. to midnight?
Right.
You've done that with this and also with Burrito Joe's, and that they're not, like this is breakfast and lunch, and then Burrito Joe's was always lunch, right?
Correct. Yeah. And part of the reason is there was a need for that downtown back in the day. I mean, there weren't that many restaurants 25 years ago. There really weren't. There was a Wendy's over here, some Skylines, and not much downtown for the average worker. And the first spot, it was a pizza joint that had shut down on Court Street, and I walked by it because I was going to Averill Meats to pick up some meat for a dinner shift at Arnold's. Like, wow, and I called the landlord, and he's like, yeah, it's this much, and it was cheap, and had everything I needed. So went in there, painted, and did some tile work, and put a sign up, and we were open in a month. So, but I like the fact where I open up, rather than spending money on marketing, I've got a captive audience. And for downtown businesses in Cincinnati, you basically draw from a 2.5 block radius. And the size of downtown has gotten pretty significant with all the offices. So it was an easy decision to make. Plus, I don't have to miss my kids, holiday events, soccer games, no dinners, no weekends, no holidays. So it fit my lifestyle well. So it just made sense for me at that time.
Yeah, that's something that Connie and her husband talked about at Basilio's, was that they knew that if they had it open all day long, now you've got 2 different shifts. You can't be there all the time.
Right.
And especially everybody feels like they've got to be open weekends and nights and late on certain times.
Yeah.
And it makes it to where it makes it hard to have not only a family life, but also when you've got to have multiple sets of employees and managers, it's got to be harder on running the restaurant.
Right. And that market was tough finding managers, a year ago. It was near impossible.
Yeah.
There's so many restaurants opened up, and all the high talent would go to the newer places. They're getting more money, they're getting benefits, so on. So you can't really compete with that. So my operations are small enough where I can run it myself with a good staff. And over the years, I've gotten wiser, and I don't spend all the way to close. I'll leave here right after the lunch rush, and then go do my paperwork, get done by 5 or 6. But I get in pretty early for catering events because everyone wants their lunch at the same time for catering. So in the grand scheme of things, it was a good idea. And once things come back to normal, I think it'll pick right back up. So
you're a master at something that every restaurant, when they come to us for advice, Matt, how do I get more catering? How do I get catering? What has been the secret? What have you found? Because you did at Burrito Joe's, I know the taco buffets. Like I remember Amy Wilson, a lady I'm friends with that used to work in this building, used to always talk about the taco buffet that they would have from Burrito Joe's.
The key is to be reliable. Because once you become a caterer for a company, and you're efficient, you're reliable, you provide good food, you don't run out of food, you show up on time, you're clean, you set it up, and you're efficient at it. The last thing the person booking a catering wants to do is have to find another caterer. So that typically they'll end up using the same caterer over and over. And the key to success is just be consistent. They know what they're gonna get, they know you're gonna show up, you're never gonna run out of food, and you're going to charge them a reasonable price. A lot of catering companies tend to nickel and dime you here and there. Ours is, this is it. You get everything. And people like that.
Probably makes it easier from somebody ordering it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most of our catering is, I'll just do last week's order.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. And we had one lady at one of the hospitals, she ordered the same thing every Friday for about 16 years. Every Friday, she wouldn't change. So if I ever had a menu change, I'd have to call her up and say, listen, this is coming off the menu, just so you know, so can you pick something else for to replace it? She said, oh, it's like it was such a task,
Yeah.
but it was a great customer.
You know, that takes me back when we had the boat dealership. I'll never forget a guy named Clancy. I don't know if he's still with them or not, but he worked for Famous Dave's in Florence.
Okay.
And Clancy was consistent, a couple of things. Number one, it was always consistent.
Yeah.
We used to order it. It was sales meetings. It was to reward the employees. It was, you know, now we have to go out and spend. But they always brought, the food was hot. It was fresh. It was good. But it was also, like you said, consistent service the entire time. But the one thing he did, and I want to get your feedback on how you did this, how he got a lot of orders from us, was every other week he would drop by, and at first he would drop off their corn muffins. I don't know if you ever had them or not, they're really good.
Yeah.
He would drop those off. Well, I didn't know he was dropping them off the first couple months because they never made them to me. Everybody else would eat them.
Gone, yeah.
And so one day I happened to see him at the restaurant. He's like, hey, what do you think of the muffins? You been getting those? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he found out I never got them. And so when he came in, he made a point to say, okay, here's yours. Here's a 6-pack for Matt. And he'd have a note on it, and it would be on my desk. Every time those muffins came, we placed an order.
Yeah.
Because it would remind me of,
Sure.
oh, it's a good food, it's a good experience, everybody in the office likes it. And so I would literally go, hey, Michelle, that was our assistant, order Famous Dave's for lunch tomorrow. And we would have it all the time.
Yeah. What we do is kind of guerrilla marketing. Brian, my catering sales manager, we'll make samples, and he'll make an appointment and just drop off free samples. How many lunches would you like? You know, pick whatever you want off our menu, and we'll drop off, 5, 10, 15 of them, and no charge.
Yeah.
And I think once they have the product and they meet him, and he's a very personable and likable guy, and they'll order. If they've got an event, they'll order. And once we do it right the first time, they'll order again. And we get a lot of referrals because we really don't spend money on marketing and advertising. That's probably not what you want to hear, but
it's right with catering. It's hard to spend money.
Yeah.
Like I've told somebody recently, they said, Matt, what can we do on Facebook to get catering? I said, honestly, the people that are gonna order catering are somebody that's have a positive experience with your brand, either in the restaurant or from like you're doing here with Brian.
Yeah, yeah. But referrals are the biggest thing. I mean, we do like 100 box lunches, for instance, at an event.
Yeah.
All of our boxes have our logo on it with marking, so they know who's providing the catering. And typically they'll say, hey, can we get the contact info for this person? If it's a new event, he'll leave business cards.
Okay.
So there'll be a stack of business cards so people can grab them if they want them. So that's basically been it. And it's been times we can't handle the business, we have to refer them somewhere else.
Okay, break time. Restaurateurs, it's Matt. And if you're watching MPTV, you're obviously interested in improving your business. What if I told you could finally take the hope and pray out of your marketing plan and spend money and see results? You see, most marketing starts with the same exact tactic. You gain the attention of somebody, but that's where the majority of it stops. What we do with the ROI engine is help you gain amazing attention, which drives gigantic engagement. That engagement leads to customers to tell us who they are, meaning they opt into your email, text, and birthday program, and then we drive them to buy something. We've got a lot of great programs that can help you, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. If you're interested, it's easy. Check out ROIexperts.net. You can schedule an appointment, and we'll hop on a call with you. Worst case scenario, you learn how to market your restaurant like you've never heard of before. Back to the action.
Have you found it, now your locations are unique, but have you found it, like sometimes places will have a different experience outside of the 4 walls versus inside? Simply Grand, I'm guessing you can have a pretty consistent nature, but like Burrito Joe's, were you able to take that exact taco experience from inside and replicate it with a taco bar?
Well, the taco bar, we'd have to charge slightly more because people would load up on the beef or the chicken and the cheese, so all the things that we portion control at the restaurant level, you can't control it on a buffet.
You got me with a big
spoon. So people are like, loading up, like that would be like 6 tacos. They're like, I'm gonna run out of meat, and so anytime I'm at an event where, you know, we're there and we're kind of keeping an eye on stuff, I'm always having like a panic attack that I'm going to run out because people are just loading things up. But we always make sure we do 25% more food than, you know, we're supposed to have. Well, I mean, we're charging them for it, but it's going to go.
That was going to be my next question, was if you're talking to a restaurateur out there that's wanting to do catering, and how do you avoid that overage? It's package it in there, I guess. Package it, you know, you got to have.
The customer will realize that they're going to pay for the service of you delivering it, setting it up, and slightly more for the product because you've got more plateware and serving utensils. All that stuff's pretty expensive and it adds up pretty quickly. So, but they don't seem to have a problem typically because the majority of them are corporate accounts. And so the company's going to say, order lunch for, you know, 50 people. And $10, $12 is the standard price for Cincinnati. You know, there are higher end caterers that will do, you know, $25, $35 for a lunch, but we're not that. Not that we can't do it. We prefer to do the volume than intricate detail of, all right, we're going to do filet for lunch because I don't think it'll hold up as well, so we're not going to offer it.
So talking about follow-up, I know obviously people get into a habit of ordering, but I also know that Brian has a lot of touch points in there.
Sure.
And that's something I think a lot of people sometimes take for granted, that just because they had a great experience that they're going to order every week. But what have you seen that Brian's done that keeps you know, the brand fresh in their minds?
So at the hospitals, for instance, we do a bunch of different groups. So if he's dropping off, and if it's his last drop off, he'll probably go and visit somebody. Hey, how are you? How you been? You know, haven't seen you for a while. You know, if you have any orders, you know, please think of us. That type of thing. And then for our big clients, every year at Christmas time, we'd send like chocolates, hand deliver them. You know, chocolates or cookies or whatever it might be, nicer, and just, you know, thank you for the business. We really appreciate it, and that goes a long way.
That could also probably be a good sales tool if you drop off a plate of cookies 2 weeks before Christmas, like end of the year present, and like, oh, we need to order some food.
Right. Christmas is a different animal because that is a time of year where a lot of caterers were already booked since October. So you really can't go and handle more business because the weather's bad, it's tough. You need the extra half an hour to get the delivery done, so on and so forth. So you really have to, unless you can handle it, you know, you can't really go and prospect in December. So from Thanksgiving to after the first of the year, you just take what you've got.
It's shaking hands, kissing babies, and maintenance.
Right. So that's the way we do it, at least.
So I guess from a Brian standpoint, what are some of the qualities that you see in him that make that successful? Because I know I've dealt with my fair share of restaurants. There was one locally that had a person that they tried to take out of being a bartender and become the catering person. And it failed miserably. Because her personality was accustomed, I don't think she liked being out and about. But what have you seen that has, you know, if you're giving advice to, you know, restaurateurs, like, hey, it might be harder to promote your hostess or your server or your bartender, because I don't know if Brian is a restaurant person or not. What did you see in his personality that kind of makes him excel?
Brian's definitely not a restaurant person, but he was a server, you know, for a long time and at a high-end restaurant. So he knew how to deal with customers on a daily basis. Brian is more of a guy that he'll build a relationship and he'll just maintain it. And he's very personable, he's very nice, and he's consistent. They can count on him. You know, he'll walk in with a smile and, you know, set it all up and he's done. You know, does the follow-up if need be and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that the personality, the key component you said there to me is high-end restaurant, is that it's a different type of experience. I was telling somebody yesterday, we were talking about how to over-deliver for clients, and I told Ashley on my team, you know, when I was in Chicago a couple years ago, I don't drink, and so everybody I was with was drinking. We're at a high-end steakhouse, and I'm like, I got a hankering for a milkshake. And our server's like, we don't have milkshakes. He goes, but just give me a minute. And literally like 10 minutes later, he comes back with a milkshake from a place down the street. I'm like, what is this? And he goes, had somebody cover my tables. I went and got you this milkshake. And I was like, wow.
Over and beyond.
Oh yeah, I mean, blew me away. He got like a $50 tip just for the milkshake.
Sure,
I was loving it.
yeah.
But that quality of attention is something I could see transferring over that maybe a traditional server at a normal restaurant might not understand.
Yeah, what you got to realize is that catering client is spending $800 to $1,000.
Yeah.
You know, so
Times 20 or 30 times possibly.
yeah, and if you go to a restaurant with 10 guys, a high-end restaurant, you're going to spend that,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, $100.
So
person.
you need that same type of service, even though you're serving 60 people, when you're doing a catering for that
Yeah, it's probably
client. So,
probably the closest thing to a professional salesperson from the restaurant would be the high-end server.
and people don't like the hard sell
Yeah.
in the food industry because so many people try to do it. Let the product and the service speak for itself. If they try the product and it's a good product and you can deliver it consistently, you'll end up with a business.
Okay.
Restaurant owners, did you know Matt has free online marketing courses that teach you how to successfully market your restaurant? Email support@mattplapp.com to get access to the courses and a free social media content calendar.
So last question, I end the podcast with this. Chris Wiley, one of my clients and a friend who was on the podcast a while back, gave it to me. He called it airplane mode. And I was asking, I said, what do you do to unwind? And he goes, that's my airplane mode. So I guess from you, restaurateurs, especially ones that work long shifts, got to find a way to take care of yourself mentally and physically.
Right.
But what do you do? What have you found that helps you, get out of the restaurant, turn airplane mode on, and pay attention to you?
Sports. I just love sports, and soccer especially. And both my kids played, and unfortunately they're grown now and not playing any longer. But I follow soccer pretty much all year round, which gives me, because there's soccer all year round with the English Premier, La Liga, Bundesliga. You got MLS. Now we've got a team in Cincinnati, which is awesome.
Great stadium being built.
Yeah, great stadium being built. So that is something I love, and it helps me unwind because I can sit there and critique it to myself, out loud, and nobody's there to bother me, and and people will walk by, and my wife will think, this guy's crazy.
No, and I can relate to that. It's something I've been doing recently, which I wish I would have done a long time ago, because my kids are 16 and 18 now, but I don't take my phone into the sporting events anymore. No. Because I find it's hard for me to not look at it, because I constantly got an email, a text, something coming from somebody looking for something, or my team. And like my wife a couple weeks ago, when she realized I was doing this, because she tells me I'm bugging her. She's like, why are you bugging me so much all of a sudden at these games? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, where's your phone? And I'm like, it's at home. Oh my gosh, you guys start bringing your phone. But you're right. I mean, sports gives you that release, especially if you have a kid involved.
Right.
And I've actually have a couple friends of mine that have they found that same thing. The one guy's kids have been out of school for 10 years, but he films the games.
Does he?
He's like, I go and film the games, and helps me kind of stay in that atmosphere, and that's my release.
Right. I might consider going back into coaching or even reffing, younger kids or whatever it might be. But I got to get this back up and going first, and then I'll concentrate on something like that for the fun. I always have to have my phone on me, because one thing is that if a client calls for a catering order or emails you and you don't respond within 10 minutes, you're going to lose that sale. Okay. Because typically it's a last minute thing. Oh shoot, it's 5 o'clock and I forgot to order for tomorrow. So I always have my phone on me, and I'm really good about responding really quickly. But it is a little annoying to always have to look at your phone. Every time it bings, you're like, what's going on?
Pavlov. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Matt.
And
good to see you.
If you're out there watching, and you want to find out more about what we do, mptv.watch. If you're listening, mptv.watch, of course. And that is today's guest, Shaheen Kazemi from Simply Grand Catering and Cafe in downtown Cincinnati. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.